At 2:47 in the morning, Marcus Thompson stood outside Riverside General Hospital with a small cooler strapped to his chest. Inside that cooler was a medication so rare, so time-sensitive, that only 17 doses existed in the entire country. And a 7-year-old girl named Lily Patterson was dying without it. Marcus had driven 287 miles through a violent thunderstorm. He had ignored 3 speeding tickets and called ahead to confirm delivery protocols. But when he reached those hospital doors, breathless, soaking wet, and clutching the one thing that could save this child's life, security wouldn't let him in. They said he didn't have the proper credentials. They said visiting hours were over. They said there was nothing they could do. What happened over the next 47 minutes would expose a broken system, transform hospital policy across 3 states, and remind millions of people why sometimes the rules need to be broken. But here's what nobody expected. The real twist wasn't who Marcus was. It was what he was willing to sacrifice to save a girl he'd never met. This is a story about bureaucracy versus humanity, about one man who refused to accept no when a child's heartbeat was fading by the minute. And by the end of this story, you'll never look at the phrase, "just doing my job," the same way again. 3 days before that hospital confrontation, Marcus Thompson was an ordinary man living an ordinary life. At 43 years old, he worked as a courier for MedExpress Solutions, a specialized medical logistics company based in Philadelphia. His job wasn't glamorous. He transported blood samples, organ transplant materials, and experimental medications to hospitals across the Northeast. Most days blurred together. Pick up, drive, deliver, repeat. But on a Tuesday evening in late October, everything changed. Marcus had just finished dinner when his phone buzzed with an urgent dispatch. The message was flagged red, the company's highest priority designation. He'd only seen that color twice in 8 years. The request came from Dr. Rachel Okonkwo, a pediatric specialist at Riverside General Hospital in upstate New York. The details were sparse but alarming. Patient, Lily Patterson, age 7. Diagnosis, acute hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis, HLH. Current status, critical. Required medication, emapalumab LZSG, Gamifant. Delivery window, 18 hours maximum. Failure to deliver, fatal. Marcus read the message 3 times. HLH is a rare, aggressive immune disorder that causes the body to essentially attack itself. White blood cells go haywire, destroying healthy tissue, organs, and eventually shutting down every major system. In children, the mortality rate without treatment exceeds 95%. The medication Lily needed, Gamifant, was relatively new, approved by the FDA in 2018. It cost over $400,000 per treatment course, and because it required specific cold chain storage conditions, transporting it was extraordinarily complicated. The nearest available dose was in Baltimore, 287 miles from Riverside General. Commercial shipping wouldn't work. The medication couldn't survive standard transit conditions, and air transport was grounded due to an approaching storm system. Every minute counted. That's when Marcus's supervisor called him directly. "This one's different," she said. "This isn't just a delivery. This is a little girl's life." Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed his keys, his emergency response kit, and headed out the door. The drive should have taken 5 hours under normal conditions. But conditions were anything but normal. By the time Marcus reached the Maryland border, the sky had turned an ominous shade of green. Tornado warnings scrolled across his radio. Rain hammered his windshield so hard that visibility dropped to nearly zero. Twice, he pulled over to wait out the worst of it. Each stop felt like an eternity. Inside the specialized cooler on his passenger seat, digital sensors monitored the medication's temperature every 30 seconds. If the internal environment dropped below 2 degrees Celsius or rose above 8 degrees Celsius for more than 15 minutes, the medication would be ruined. Useless. Gone. Marcus kept one eye on the temperature readings and one eye on the road. His phone buzzed continuously, updates from Dr. Okonkwo's team, from his dispatcher, from the Patterson family's desperate relatives who had somehow gotten his number. One message stood out. It was from Lily's mother, Sarah Patterson, asterisk, "I don't know if you'll see this. I don't know if you're the right person. But someone told me you're bringing the medicine that might save my daughter. I need you to know that Lily loves horses. She wants to be a veterinarian. She has a goldfish named Sparkles. She just learned to ride a bike without training wheels last month. Please, please bring her home to us. Asterisk Marcus pulled over. He sat in the darkness, rain pounding the roof of his car, and read that message for more times. He thought about his own daughter, now 24 and living in California. He thought about all the deliveries he'd made over the years, the ones he'd forgotten, the ones that felt routine. This one would never be routine. He wiped his eyes, put the car in drive, and pushed forward into the storm. Against all odds, Marcus arrived at Riverside General at 2:47 a.m., 3 hours ahead of schedule. His clothes were soaked. He hadn't eaten in 7 hours. His hands were shaking from exhaustion and caffeine. But the cooler was intact. The medication was stable. The temperature readings showed a perfect 4.2 degrees Celsius. He'd done it, or so he thought. Marcus approached the hospital's main entrance, expecting the usual protocol: a security check, verification of his credentials, handoff to the receiving pharmacy team. Instead, he found the doors locked and a single security guard sitting behind reinforced glass. Marcus knocked on the window. The guard, a heavy-set man in his 50s, looked up from his phone with visible annoyance. "Visiting hours are over," he said through a speaker. "Come back at 8 a.m. Marcus held up his courier badge. "This isn't a visit. I have an emergency medical delivery. There's a patient in critical condition waiting for this medication." The guard squinted at the badge, then shook his head. "That's not on my list. All after-hours deliveries require pre-authorization from hospital administration. Do you have Form 17B? Form 17B. Marcus had never heard of it. "Sir, I spoke directly with Dr. Rachel Okonkwo 3 hours ago. She confirmed this delivery. A child is dying. This medication has a limited viability window. Please, just call up to the pediatric ICU." The guard's expression didn't change. "I can't make calls without authorization. And I can't let unauthorized personnel into the building. Those are the rules." Rules. A 7-year-old girl was running out of time, and this man was talking about rules. What happened next would later be analyzed in hospital administration courses, news segments, and congressional testimony about healthcare accessibility. But in that moment, Marcus didn't care about any of that. He only cared about one thing: getting through those doors. "Listen to me very carefully," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "I have driven 287 miles through the worst storm this region has seen in a decade. Inside this cooler is a medication that cannot be replaced. There is no backup dose. There is no plan B. If I don't deliver this medication within the next 2 hours, a little girl named Lily Patterson will die. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" The security guard, whose name tag read Gerald, shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I get it. But my hands are tied. If I let you in without authorization and something goes wrong, I lose my job. I've got a family too, you know." Marcus understood the logic, the fear, but understanding didn't change the math. Every minute they spent arguing was a minute Lily didn't have. "Then call someone," Marcus pleaded. "Call your supervisor. Call the night administrator. Call anyone who can authorize this." Gerald sighed heavily but reached for his radio. What followed was 23 minutes of bureaucratic nightmare. Gerald's supervisor, Denise, couldn't be reached because she was handling an emergency in the ER. The night administrator, Robert Hayes, requested verification documentation before approving entry. When Marcus finally reached Hayes by phone, the conversation deteriorated quickly. "Mr. Thompson, I appreciate your urgency, but we have protocols for a reason. We've had incidents before. People claiming to be medical couriers who were actually attempting to steal controlled substances. I need to verify your identity, your company's credentials, and the legitimacy of this delivery before I can authorize anything." "How long will that take?" Marcus asked. "Our verification team typically processes requests within 24 to 48 hours. 24 to 48 hours. Lily had less than 2. Marcus felt something shift inside him. It was the same feeling he'd had years ago when his own daughter was hospitalized with meningitis. The desperate need to do something when the people who should be helping become obstacles instead. "Mr. Hayes," Marcus said quietly, "I'm going to give you one more chance to make the right decision. After that, I'm coming inside this hospital whether you authorize it or not. And if that little girl dies because you chose paperwork over her life, I will personally make sure that every news organization, every medical ethics board, and every parent in this country knows exactly who was responsible. Are we clear?" There was silence. Then Robert Hayes hung up. Marcus stood outside those hospital doors for exactly 3 minutes and 47 seconds after that call ended. He considered his options: wait and follow the rules, force his way inside and risk arrest, or find another way. It was a hospital maintenance worker named Carlos Mendez who changed everything. Carlos had been watching the confrontation from a side entrance. He knew something Marcus didn't. His own nephew had died 3 years earlier from a rare blood disorder. The medication that might have saved him had arrived 6 hours too late. At 3:34 a.m., Carlos approached Marcus. "Hey, you the guy with the medicine?" Marcus nodded, too exhausted to speak. "Follow me. I know another way in." Carlos led Marcus through a service entrance, up a freight elevator, and directly to the pediatric intensive care unit. When the elevator doors opened, they were met by Dr. Rachel Okonkwo herself, frantically trying to reach administration. "Tell me you have it," she said. Marcus handed her the cooler. "Temperature stable. Medication intact. I'm sorry it took so long." She didn't respond. She was already running toward Lily's room. What happened over the next several hours was nothing short of miraculous. Lily received her first dose of Gamifant at 4:12 a.m., with 17 minutes to spare before it would have degraded. Within 6 hours, her inflammatory markers began dropping. Within 24 hours, she was stable enough to be moved out of the ICU. Within a week, she was sitting up in bed, asking to see her goldfish sparkles. She would survive. Marcus Thompson was arrested at 4:47 a.m. for trespassing and unauthorized building access. He spent 14 hours in custody and was fired the next day. His courier license was temporarily suspended. For 3 weeks, he was treated like a criminal. But the story broke. Sarah Patterson shared the story with the media, showing photos and messages. It went viral. Suddenly, Marcus was everywhere. The medicine man, the courier who wouldn't quit. Celebrities, politicians, and the public demanded answers. Investigations were launched. Policies changed. Form 17B was eliminated. Carlos Mendez was promoted to patient advocacy liaison. All charges against Marcus were dropped within 6 weeks. His courier license was reinstated. He declined his old job to start a nonprofit, Last Mile Heroes, dedicated to ensuring critical medical deliveries never fail due to bureaucracy. In its first 2 years, the organization facilitated over 400 emergency deliveries. On the 1-year anniversary of her treatment, Lily sent Marcus a handwritten letter. "Dear Mr. Marcus, my mom says you are the reason I am alive. She says you drove really far in a big storm to bring me medicine. That sounds really scary, but also really brave. I'm sorry you got in trouble. My goldfish Sparkles says thank you too. When I grow up and become a veterinarian, I'm going to help animals the way you helped me. Maybe one day I can do something brave like you. Thank you for not giving up. Love, Lily. P.S. I can ride my bike really fast now." Marcus keeps that letter in his wallet. He's read it over 1,000 times. Every time, he remembers why he drove through that storm. We live in a world full of rules. Most of the time, they work. But every system has blind spots. Sometimes following the rules becomes more dangerous than breaking them. Marcus Thompson wasn't a rebel. He was a man who understood that some deadlines aren't flexible. Some lives hang in the balance while paperwork sits on a desk. The question isn't whether rules matter. They do. The question is, when rules fail, who will step up? Gerald followed orders. Robert Hayes protected the hospital from liability. They weren't villains. Carlos Mendez chose differently, risking his job for a stranger's child, and that choice made all the difference. Somewhere in your life, there's probably a moment waiting for you, a moment to choose between the easy path and the right one, between following rules and following your conscience. When that moment comes, remember Lily Patterson asking about her goldfish and Marcus Thompson standing in the rain with a cooler strapped to his chest. Sometimes, being a hero isn't about superpowers. It's about refusing to say no when a life is on the line.